I'm Steve Roach, the editor-at-large of Coin World, and we asked our readers, what would you love to know about PCGS? What questions can I ask the co-founders? And more than 400 of you responded and gave me some great questions. We only have an hour today, so I've condensed them a little bit, but I've tried to give a flavor of kind of the diversity of questions that our readers asked. So what was the first coin graded by PCGS?
I'll take that one because I remember it distinctly. On February 8th, 1986, we had our first round of grading, and the first coin we graded was a 1934 light model quarter, and we graded it mint state 65.
Gordon, where's that coin today?
Good question. It's, 30 years ago, it was probably sold into the marketplace, and I have no idea who has it now.
So it could still be out there?
It should be out there.
It's probably listed on the population report.
Cool. Something to look for.
It's probably a coin David and I sold.
So when you were founding PCGS, what were some of the unexpected problems that you had? What were things that you didn't foresee as you started a coin grading service?
Well, we absolutely didn't foresee the acceptance. We thought that we would grade, a few people would like it, some of the more reputable dealers. We grade 3,000 coins a month. First month we got 18,000 coins, second month 35,000 coins. By 6 months in, we were getting 100,000 coins a month. And so operationally, we were geared up and we set up to do our 3,000 coins a month, and all of a sudden we're getting 30, 50, 100,000. So we had to kind of make it up as we went along and build a high volume grading service from scratch. So there were logistical hiccups along the way and hurdles that we had to solve.
Part of it, we had to fly graders in to the state of California and put them, we had the blocks of hotel rooms or apartments that we rented, and graders would come in and stay for 4 or 5 days and fly out.
We rented some apartments called the Cape in Irvine, I guess it was. And to go along with what David was saying, in order to introduce people who are not used to having third-party grading, we put on a special. For the month of May, any coin, $15. And that led to one of the unexpected problems, which was a backlog of approximately 150,000 coins that we had trouble getting through. I was director of grading for the first 10 years, and I was scrambling to find graders. And we'd have people come in for a week, 2 weeks. At one point, we had 38 graders to take care of this backlog, and eventually we got through it.
I was told that I would never have to come out and grade. And about 2 or 3 months in, I get a call from David, and he really didn't say much. He just said, help. And I started grading and did that for about 10 years. Like Gordy said, a lot of us, the out-of-town graders, would come in for 1 week and then be off the next week, and then every other week. So for about 10 years, I came to California every other week.
When David talks about the backlog and Gordy talks about the backlog, what happened is there became a secondary market of what were known as slots. And the teletype machine, guys would put up slots for sale. Like I've got a slot at May 15th for 20 coins. Because people were waiting, 5 or 6 months to get their coins graded back then in 86
They
and
were
87?
paying extra for the slots.
Yeah, they were paying $50 to $80 for a slot per coin. Because a lot of guys couldn't tie their money up for 5 months or 6 months. They were willing to pay the $50 a slot or whatever it was. There was a marketplace for their reservations in line.
A classic oversubscribed business.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you just knew this is going to be big?
I don't think so. It just continued to grow.
Just built up over time, I would say. It snowballed, as they say.
It was a pretty humble business where we were just trying to make a level playing field for a lot of the collectors and investors and stuff. And
David had a plan which included getting authorized dealers to submit the coins for their clients. And initially we had, when we launched, we had about 30 authorized dealers who said, we're going to submit to you. And it spread from that. The dealers, more and more dealers were coming on board, and we started, they started forming something called ANI, the numismatic exchange, and you had to be an ANI dealer, and it evolved, it exploded, really.
For me, the moment I knew that we had arrived was a little after a year or so in. A very prominent dealer in the numismatic community, I won't say his name, but it was a real old line New York firm. And when he called me up and said, David, I think it's time for, quote, quote, our firm to become a PCGS authorized dealer, I was pretty sure we'd arrived.
So go back to kind of the mid to late 80s. When you were setting up PCGS, with being able to look at the rearview mirror, what would you have done differently? Everyone's looking at you, Gordon.
No, I can't think of anything.
There's not
Probably
much.
a million little things, but it's a
Yeah.
growing business. It still is a growing
Well,
business.
we would have moved quicker to larger quarters and expanded our staff. We did expand it as quickly as we could with trusted people, but it was growing pains all the way. At one time, we had a satellite grading room because we had 38 graders and not enough spaces to put them.
Well, it started in our office, didn't it?
Yeah, we put some
were
in
our office to begin
Van's
with.
office.
So if you can just imagine planning a business to do 3,000 units a month, and then first month is 18,000 units, 6 times what you thought. Next month was 10 times what you thought. So I have a story which illustrates one of the first year's problems. We paid the graders by the coin. We paid them $1 a coin. And a grader could grade approximately 100 to 120 coins an hour. And then, this was the first year, we thought, maybe they're rushing it a little bit, Why don't we just pay them $100 an hour? So we paid them $100 an hour. And immediately they went down from 100 to 120 coins an hour to one guy even went down to 30 coins an hour. And we had this backlog and customers wanting their coins and this whole, so we thought, well, this is not working. I guess we'll just have to do quality control a little bit differently. And so we went back to $1 a coin. And the guy who was grading 30 coins an hour, the next day when we started back at $1 was back to 100 to 120 coins an hour. Which I think, well, we're not going to say. I'll tell you later. Okay. I think that says a lot about human nature and the role of incentives in the marketplace. And it says a lot about what we had to struggle with that first year or two. We knew we had a good idea. We knew it would help some people. We didn't know the entire market would adopt it so soon, so quick. And I think the word you used was massively. It was a massive adoption very quick.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the coin market today and PCGS's role within today's coin market, is it what you thought it would be when you started?
I think the way we started, and it was David's idea, we actually started writing the ultimate coin book. And this, I have photo evidence that it started in the late 70s, but really picked up steam in the 80s. And we were meeting after the bourse would close, we'd go up to somebody's room and do our research and start trying to define all the terms and everything in his book. Anyway, but when David approached us, on this idea, we were looking at the marketplace and said, oh, geez, the SEC's investigating this firm, and they're shutting down that firm, and they're finding this firm. We said, you know, what good is it writing this book if, you know, the coin market's going to self-destruct with all this bad publicity? So David says to me one day, and JD, I believe, he said, now, Gordon, if JD grades a coin 65 and you grade a coin the same coin 65, do you think the marketplace would accept it? JD, and I said, sure. You know, they do now without grading. So David says, well, why don't we grade the coins? But what he said next threw us all for a loop. And he said, and why don't we encapsulate them in plastic holders, in tamper-proof plastic holders? I says, what? People want to, you know, hold their coins? Well, he says, that'll preserve them. And that way we can guarantee the coins, which was key. To guarantee our work, which we do to this day.
At the time, we were having a lot of trouble buying common date dollars in the grade MS-65 through the mid-'80s. And we'd have to fly to coin shows, look at all these coins, raw coins. And a lot of dealers would send us coins because on the teletype machine we'd be bidding, you know, like 200, 500, whatever the price was. And I said to David one day, I go, you know, it doesn't make sense. I can buy coins from Gordy or JD or a couple other guys. When we get them in, they're graded right. 95% of them we agree with the grade and we buy them. The other guys, we have to return them all. The next day David calls and he says, you know, let's go to Coco's for breakfast. We go over to breakfast and he goes, you know, Gordy and JD and I, and you know, we kind of all agree on the grade. What do you think if we started a grading service? And then he approached Gordy and JD and talked to them about it. And I mean, it was all his idea. He was the horse who ran with it, obviously, but it was a great idea because there were certain people who were conservative on their grading.
Now, it's an interesting sidelight on this legend that we were trying to write a book, and it was one of the driving forces. So if you want to, and you tell me if this sounds familiar, have a condition census for every U.S. coin. If you want to have rarity listings, etc., okay, to you it might sound like, and actually that first thing that me and Gordy and JD, Bruce Amsbatcher, wanted to do, we have done. Mm-hmm. It's now called PCGS Coin Facts. Yep. Okay, that's what we were trying to do back then before the internet, when computer technology, you know, we were writing them out on little cards and things. You come to the problem of grade. If you're building a condition census, how do you agree on the grade? Okay, so that was one of the problems. And then Gordy mentioned it at the time, the early 80s. There's tremendous problem with misrepresentation of product in our industry, and it was not good for the long-term health of our industry, so we kind of married the two ideas together. So the original legend of the book is true. It's what me and JD and Gordy and Bruce Amsbatcher used to do, try to figure out how to do the book of everything. And then later on, with the help of Ron Guth, we built PCGS Coin Facts, which is what we wanted to do before the idea of grade got in the way, and the idea of grade was a problem in the market. So we took, 25 years to tackle that before we finished the book, so to speak.
Interestingly, I'll never forget the night that the very first slab appeared. David brought in when we used to meet at coin shows after the coin show. We were up in a room. It was Gordy, David, Bruce Amsbatcher, and myself. And David brought in a Type 1 holder, a common date Washington quarter. That would be interesting. We would talk about the first coin that was slabbed. That was the first coin that was slabbed, because that was the prototype. He had the holder made up somewhere, and he brought it in. I'll never forget that night, because it changed our direction. Because, like he said, we were really more of a book project and a concept of condition census, and we're going to list all the coins, and that just changed that night. That was a dramatic change. That night our entire world changed. Because really, to me, that's the night PCGS started. Because PCGS, the grading service, wasn't really a grading service until the concept. David came in with the concept of this coin in a holder, graded and guaranteed for authenticity and grade. And all of a sudden, all of our minds changed, from the book project. Like he said, that sort of got pushed to the side for a long time until CoinFacts came along. But the grading, obviously, the rest of that is history, how it developed into the grading service. But I'll never forget that one night of him bringing in the very first slab, because obviously the concept, was there, but this was actually a product, that we could actually put out.
So many people watching this video don't know of a hobby before PCGS and before third-party grading and encapsulation. So many people watching don't know of our hobby before the internet. What's something from the late 70s, early 80s that you miss about the hobby?
Well, I guess it was a group of good old boys meeting at weekend warriors, we called them. We'd meet at a coin show somewhere in the country, maybe even out of the country. And we'd buy and sell amongst ourselves, and everybody had their own ideas of what the grade and price, thereby the price would be. And sometimes you agreed with the person, sometimes he undervalued it or undergraded it in our eyes, and you did business that way.
To answer that question, you have to look at the changes in the marketplace, the structure of the marketplace, and why coins are so special for all of collectibles. There is no other collectible market that has such a small spread between real dealer wholesale value and the quote retail or the public buying price. So those margins are way thinner. Now velocity picks up when margins go down, pretty classic economics, and that's what happened as a result of third-party grading, specifically PCGS. So one of the things I miss is what could happen then is when was our Houston A&A?
78.
1978, at a major auction, JD and I purchased a coin for $260 that we sold 2 days later for $6,500. And now in certified grading, you can't do that. I guess you can. The Overton half that just got discovered.
Yeah, it happens, but it's rare.
And I don't miss that in a greedy sense, because now most knowledgeable dealers, and as we've entered other markets, stamps, sports cards, I always tell the dealers, I always try to talk to the more progressive and generally, in my opinion, expert dealers, and I always say, whenever structure comes to a marketplace like we bring, the smart people do the best. So you'll do great if we start grading baseball cards or stamps or whatever is what I tell them. And that's kind of what happened. It's helped especially the smart and ethical dealers because volume has increased so much. But the spreads, it was more the Wild West. And while there were problems about that, and you had to be careful, your expertise, there was kind of an excitement of going into the coin show because you could pick off coins. You could buy a coin that was a bargain. It's harder to find, although at the time, some very smart people like David Bowers would say there's no bargains in numismatics. You get what you pay for. And it's still true, and it was kind of true then. However, there was less structure, the information was more guarded. So if you were a real expert, you could go in and apply that Wild West kind of excitement. Now it's a lot different.
That's the way it is in most collectibles markets, except the ones that we've entered. We've made more of a level playing field for people. They don't have to be experts. But in other fields of collectibles, it's the experts are in there and they can pick stuff off every once in a while.
And then we had the coin shows, which were, as Gordon said, the weekend warriors. And you do know about this is a rest in peace, Bruce Amspacher, founder who's no longer here, comment. He explained the wild, wild west of the coin shows back in the days before PCGS. He said when he was telling his readers of his newsletter, if you go to a coin show, you have to be cognizant when you purchase a coin of the coin show 30-30-30 guarantee. And what is that? When you buy a coin, the guarantee at a coin show is 30 seconds, 30 steps, or 30%.